Hey, this is Alexa Peterson with the Hitting Vaults. I'm going to be doing a swing analysis of Austin Martin from Vandy. He's 6 foot, 185 pounds, and is really versatile both offensively and defensively. As a sophomore last year, he slashed 392, 486, and 604. So let's get started here. So starting stance, and I know this might be a little bit blurry, this video here, so they'll get a little bit clearer after this, but you can kind of see his starting stance is kind of a neutral kind of starting stance. He starts with his front foot up a little bit right here, a little bit more upright with his torso. His hands are lower set with his barrel more vertical right there in that position. So you'll kind of see in his load, as he loads, with his hands being lower, he's going to move them more up. So hitters that have their hands, really, really high, hitters that are a little bit higher above their head, you're going to see a load movement working down more, whereas hitters that start a little bit lower, when they load, we see them to work upwards. So let's go forward here. So you can see right there, he immediately starts bringing his hands up. He kind of then starts to have his front knee pick up, kind of sinking into his back knee, but staying stacked. Kind of reminds me of Christian Yelich, where he kind of sinks into that back knee. And that's okay. He doesn't have a ton of head movement going down. You see, a couple inches or so going down, but it's a controlled movement with that. And he goes forward. As he goes forward, you see that that knob starts to work more towards the catcher as he works forward towards the pitcher. Gets to launch position there. In launch position is when that front heel hits. You see that his front shoulder is lower than his back shoulder. He's got some good hip hinge. Right there you can tell this pitch is just kind of pretty much right down the middle. And you can see his hip hinge that he maintains throughout the swing. So let's scoot ahead here. This next video is going to be clearer for you to see. Just wanted to show you his starting stance mostly in that first video. So this is the same swing. Goes forward, gets to his launch position. You can tell he has some bend in his front knee. Hip hinge is so crucial to have as a hitter. It allows you to get on plane and stay on plane with a pitch without totally rotating open. If you have hitters that are having issues with their front shoulder flying open, more often than not, it has to do with their torso here being straight up and down, very upright, because the more upright you are with your torso versus being kind of angled over, it's your immediate movement is going to be working that front shoulder out. You aren't able to work it up and let the back shoulder work down and stay through the ball very well with that. So we can see there after launch position, we start to see those hips opening up. Front shoulder works up, back shoulder works down. You can see that even in his launch position too, just something to note. You can tell that he's got wrinkling here in his jersey. And that's because his hands are still up and back. Not letting them drift forward. A lot of hitters start to have their hands go really, really far forward. Their knob has already started to go towards the pitcher, and they're not creating separation. We want to make sure we have good separation. So that's what we can kind of see here, just straight by his jersey wrinkling there. So his hands are up and back. Now he starts to turn. His hips are opening up. His lower half is opening up. Front hip is working back. The back hip is working forward. And we see it kind of that movement where the hip works open, that then creates that sequence of events that we want to have of hips, torso, then the hands and barrel come through, one after the other. We don't want to have those hands starting to go ahead early. That's where we're going to see a lot of lack in power, and often a lot of ground balls where they just basically push their bat towards the ball, pushing the knob towards the ball. We want the lower half to be rotating, turning the barrel, getting on plane early, and then staying through it. So you can see he's on plane with the pitch. You can tell the hip hinge here, good shoulder tilt. His head is over his toes. I like using that with the lessons that I give for kids to give them an idea of keeping that head over the toes versus keeping the head right here. If their head's right here, that means that their torso's here and they've lost that hip hinge that they need to have throughout the swing. You can see that his belt buckle is pretty much at the pitcher at this point in the swing. Right around bat lag, we see majority of elite hitters with their belt buckle pointed at the pitcher. And then it allows that bat to whip through the zone versus just taking your hands to it, kind of punching at the ball. And at contact, You see that kind of very close correlation there between the shoulders and the bat angle. It might be off a little bit on some, hits here or there, might not be exactly identical, but we shouldn't see shoulders here, bat flat. A big one that we see is flat shoulders and a super tilted vertical bat angle. That's being disconnected in the swing. And so you can see, he has a great extension continuing on the plane of the pitch, and that is allowed by having hip hinge. So if you have hitters that are having a really tough time with, their extension, you can see that their extension is really low, cutting low across this way. Working on just trying to have them extend better isn't necessarily going to fix the problem. What's more often than not, we're going to see, if you pay attention to the hip hinge, they're lacking that hip hinge, or they lose it in the middle of their swing, and that's what causes kind of a downward, steepward extension down and around. So he gets to launch position again. It's the same swing. We see those hips opening up. That front knee is opening up as well. Turning those hips, then turning the torso, and that allows that barrel to then whip through at a higher speed than if you just try to take it with your upper half. Here's another swing here. Gets to launch position, good hip hinge, nice and balanced, hips opening up. Good tilt on this down and in pitch. And you see he does step a little bit closed. There's hitters that are successful with stepping a little bit closed at an angle there. But what's important is that, their barrel, that they're still working with their hip hinge. They're not losing their hip hinge. I see hitters that step close often either just fly that front shoulder out with no hip hinge, or they actually stand up. I see a lot of hitters that stand up if they stride a little bit closed off. You can see he stays really well into his legs and his hip hinge throughout his swing. You can see his back foot becoming weightless. We also don't want to squish the bug. We don't want to have a ton of weight in our back foot at contact. We'll see that occasionally with elite hitters when they're not on time, but if a hitter is on time, like this is a home run, his back foot is literally off of the ground at contact point, and that's okay to have. And you can see as he strides forward, this is a good kind of side angle, he kind of, at least on this swing, he's stepping forward very controlled, and then his heel gets down right there. So you can see he kind of reaches a little bit, and there's some hitters that that could negatively affect if they aren't able to be on time with it. This is obviously something that he is successful with, and he gets to a good launch position when his heel hits, where he's nice and balanced, his front shoulder's lower than his back shoulder, knob down towards the catcher, some bend in his front knee, good distance between his feet, and that good hip hinge that we talked about with his hands kind of up and back by his back foot. So he gets to a good launch position. We see hitters sometimes with toe taps, or Nolan Arenado. He's a hitter that has, he steps with his back foot, actually helping with his timing. He picks up his back foot, puts it back down, and then he strides forward with his front foot. So there's going to be some things with some hitters that might be unconventional, that are not exactly smooth with their timing, that you would think that would negatively affect their timing. But if they are able to be consistent with it, and they're getting to a good launch position, they're using their lower half, able to maintain hip hinge throughout their swing, then don't worry about it. You can see those hips opening up, deep barrel turn back here, not taking the knob straight, taking the barrel straight down to the ball. We want to have a swing that's working slightly up, not swinging down and then cutting across. This one's really inside. You see how good he does at keeping that back elbow tight to his side there. Doesn't pull it in. He turns with his hips really hard, but the direction of his elbow movement is close to his body, allowing him to turn tighter. And he keeps that hip hinge, which so many hitters on inside pitches, they just stand up, yank, pull that front shoulder out, and it ends up hitting a ball completely foul, or hitting it off their front foot, which is not comfortable. So overall, Austin Martin definitely has a bright future, and I'm sure we'll all be keeping a close eye on him as he starts his pro career. So he's going to be going number 1 or number 2 today, and so wish him the best of luck. Thanks for watching.